Okay, and welcome back everyone. Today we'll be taking a look at one of my custom Lego creations. This is the Vulture or Mad Dog from the Mechwarrior or Battletech universe. This is actually my first Lego mech that is in minifigure scale. It's actually a little bit smaller than minifigure scale, but it's large enough to fit a minifigure inside. I chose to do the Vulture because ever since seeing that Necroyer for Vengeance trailer where the Vulture goes one against three and does the Alpha Strike before exploding, it's always been one of my favorite mechs. It's also just a really great design in general. It reminds me of almost like a uh, fighter jet, not like an F-22 type of fighter jet, but kind of like the F-15 Eagle, something like that. Um, the it also has a lot of lore and is in general just a really popular mech in the Mechwarrior universe, and so for those reasons I said why not? Why not build the Vulture as my first mech? And so here it is. For the design of this creation, I kind of went off of the Vulture's design in numerous in different adaptations. For example, the body and torso area is very reminiscent of how the Vulture appears in Mechwarrior 4, whereas the upper arms, how they kind of come down, is closer to the classic design, as well as how it appears in the more recent game Mechwarrior Online. Um, I also want this to kind of look like a little bit more like a hero unit, and so it has a little bit of the custom color scheme where there's this sand blue um, stripe coming down the middle as a secondary color, as well as uh, the teeth and mouth area right above the gun pod. The other things that make it kind of a custom Vulture are these extra armor bits in the shoulder pad, the kind of radar dish. Not really sure what that's for, but I just thought it would look cool. Maybe it lets the Vulture communicate further, who knows. In the future you still need radar dishes. But the other thing is, right here on the knees you can see these black kind of piston pieces. This was kind of came about unintentionally. Originally I was just looking for a way to make the knee joint stiff enough to actually hold up the weight of the figure. And so the way I went about doing that is kind of creating this, using these Technic pieces to create just a little bit more resistance. It actually does work a little bit like a piston, where I'll show you later that this area gets shorter if you do bend the leg. So those are the parts that I just kind of wanted to make it stand out a little bit more. In terms of the build, just wanted to talk about a couple of things. So when you're building a mech or any Lego creation of this size, and you still want it to be articulate yet stable, I do recommend, for example, for the hip area where there is a ball joint, I still recommend using this piece here, because it provides more friction than your standard Lego ball joint, and that's how I got the hip area to work out. With the knees, as I was describing earlier, there is that extra Technic piece, but that was primarily because I made this before I knew about this piece, which will come in really handy if you're looking for something strong. It's got a really nice strong ratchet and can hold up a lot of weight, so this is something you'd want to use for a creation this size. And actually I've already made, or I'm almost done making, a Lego Mad Cat and Timberwolf, and that mech utilizes this ratchet joint. So let's take a look at some of the features of the Vulture here. Firstly, you'll notice I have the pilot figure saluting and standing off to the side, but he can actually be seated inside the mech. Let's get him into a sitting position. And let's see if I can open this cockpit without completely destroying the Vulture. Yeah, it's a really tight fit. There we go. Alright, you can see that there is a nice little seat there for the figure, as well as some control panel detailing. So let's get him to sit in his cockpit and close it back up. And there you go. You have the pilot figure sitting in the cockpit. Okay, what else can this thing do? Well, these shoulder pads are kind of on these hinge joints, not that you'd ever want to move them. Anyway, the shoulders are on these Lego ratchet joints, which allows for outward movement as well as up and down movement. And here at the elbow, it's connected by one of the mixel ball joints, so you have a lot of range there. When building this, I always wanted it to have a lot of range of motion, because I feel like some of the games portrayed the mechs as very static, almost tank-like robots, whereas if you've ever read one of the books, and I haven't read too many, but the artwork is always showing the mechs in, extreme positions and running in very, very much like the dynamic robots that they are. So I wanted to make sure that was incorporated. With the hips, again, we're using the Technic Lego ball joints, which allows for outward movement about that far. It can rotate at the hip too. It can go forward and back. There is also a hinge joint at the knee. Like we talked about earlier, it's comprised of both the normal ratchet ball joint as well as this Technic piece that goes into this technical that gives it just enough friction to hold up the mech, and it can bend about that far. There is also a ball joint at the feet, which just lets it stand stably on the ground. And I also forgot that there is a torso swivel. And actually, one of the toughest parts of this design was not only doing the legs so that they would have the articulation and also be sturdy enough to hold the figure up, but actually building this gun pod here. And for the Vulture, this gun pod is so important because it's kind of a signature part of the mech, having the two cannons in that area. This was actually incredibly hard to make, and it took me several builds, but this is what I ended up deciding on. Because of the size of the robot, I didn't want it to look too small or too large, and that was actually a little bit of a challenge. Yeah, so I think that covers most of the articulation and the features. So yeah, this has just been a quick showcase of my custom Lego Vulture. Let's get it in a cool pose. And it's shooting off to the side here. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I've got a lot more stuff I want to show you guys. For example, I have a minifigure scale Lego Mad Cat that's just about done, so I'd like to post a video on that soon. But if this is something you guys enjoyed or like to see, please subscribe and leave a like. I'd really appreciate it. I have a lot more stuff to show you guys. So again, this has been Funny Stuff Toys. We'll be taking a look at a lot more reviews on both my customs, kind of showcasing my custom creations, as well as reviews of figures from a lot of different toy lines. So if those are things you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.